Hey, I'm sorry for the framing today. I'm a little having one of these standing at the desk days, so I'll try to hunch over. I'm sure my back will appreciate that by the end of the stream. Welcome to the stream. We have a Q&A stream tonight. I threatened to not have one, but it turns out that that's what we're going to do, and we're going to kind of stick with a bit of an alternating schedule for a while. But the longer term plan, we're going to try to fill up the roster with a little less Q&A and a little bit more things that we're dreaming up right now. We had a stream last week. I don't know if anyone caught it, but it was a lot of fun. We did a kind of a demo of a game project that Agora Studio has been working on the side, and it was kind of fun because Andrew got to make fun of me and my terrible skills, and it was good times. So if you weren't there for that, you should go back and check that one out. Let me bring in hello Petar. Were you there, Petar, during that little stream? I can't remember if I saw you or not. I feel like you were. I'm going to bring in David. Hello, David.
Hey, Brent.
Hello. Hi. It's almost like you forgot I was here, almost, kind of.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You started and you even started to discuss with chat and all that. So I was like, all right, I'm going to hang around, just in case.
just in case he actually might just drag me in randomly. Yeah.
It's all good. I have plenty of other shit to do, so it's all good.
You're just bored. The only reason you show up here is because you got nothing else to do. You know it. Don't even pretend that you don't have lots of spare time. It's just silly. Man. Yeah, well, no rest for the wicked, I guess.
No. So that's a Q&A, right?
I think so. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to do Q&A, although we don't have a gigantic backlog, so this might be the world's fastest, shortest Q&A on the planet. We'll see how it goes.
I have a first question for you.
Oh, you do? Oh, man. You threatened to do this, but I thought you were kidding, but apparently you weren't kidding.
No, it was an actual threat. What did you thought of what you played last week?
Oh, the game?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and ideally it's not a yes or no answer. It's more this was cool. I'm not sure about this.
I think the overall impression I had was there is an interesting mechanic there that has legs. Like it felt fresh. Like and I was saying it during the stream. It's hard to really feel it or understand it unless you're trying to do it. And this idea of having the left stick and the left trigger and the right trigger and the right stick, those two things are they have to be used together in order to solve some of these puzzles. And it's not super, super easy, but it's also not super, super hard. So it intrigues me. as to what could happen. Like some of those puzzles, you really had to be doing both of them at the same time, which I thought was really interesting. As opposed to just sort of setting it up. And then, there was a game that I played not so long ago called Brothers. I don't know if anyone's ever played this game, but it is very, very cool, very interesting game. And it's about these two brothers. They go on this quest together to save their father. It's an extremely touching game with a really nice narrative, beautiful graphics. It's worth playing. But a very novel thing was that you are controlling two characters at the same time, one per stick. And so what they do with this towards the end especially is like will blow your mind and melt your heart. So it's definitely worth the play because it gets inside your head, because it's developing these neural pathways that then they leverage later to kind of get a reaction out of you, and it's pretty intense. So I feel like you're kind of dipping in similar sort of waters there by experimenting with something in a similar way.
Yeah.
And the puzzles are going to be so interesting,
Yeah.
They could be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the best part of the game mechanic is when on one joystick you can control time, fast forward, rewind, and on the other you're actually controlling space.
Yeah,
you kind of control space and time with both joystick, and your brain has some time to readjust. But when he nails it, and you know exactly, and you're able to do it, it's super satisfying.
Exactly.
I feel that right now we leverage this maybe 0.5% of the time.
I agree.
The game.
Yep.
And it's almost as we have this really cool mechanic, and we're using it mainly to push this button to open this door and push
exactly.
Which we've seen this before.
So, we'll see it all the time actually in so many games.
So I think that maybe as it evolves, we're going to find ways to better leverage this really cool mechanic that can be extremely satisfying, and that open a lot of possibilities for the entire game. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that an area that most people have, I think, sort of like most of these productions that have puzzles built into the sort of the gameplay. Good puzzle designers do not grow on trees. Most of the production I've been on are always struggling to find really good puzzle designers, because it's not like there's a thing about puzzles that is not really fully understood by most people, and I can't profess to understand it either. There's a science and an art to it. Basically, you're always looking for elegant puzzles, and elegance to a puzzle means that it's logical. It's sort of not immediately obvious, right? That's the trick. You can't just, because then it's lock and key. It's like you press a button, you open the door, and you go through it. That's not much of a puzzle. You need to layer the thing. So a good game will teach you a bunch of these ingredients. A classic example, one of the best games out there, in my opinion, that was really successful, and it takes a kind of a different path. It's not the classic kind of puzzle design. It's a bit more, a little bit more abstract in many ways. I don't know if they started out like this, but it's where it ended up. It's Zelda Breath of the Wild. You have a bunch of these abilities, and some of those abilities are unlocked earlier in the game, so you don't have all of them right away. But those abilities are then now needed to solve puzzles in these shrines. And what became interesting to even the developers were people were playing the game and finding other ways to solve the puzzles, because the actual abilities were kind of physics based, and they were just figuring out other cool alternate solutions. And the designers were like, very interesting. And most people will call this emergent gameplay, because it's like you're giving the player a rule set and a bunch of tools, and then you're like, there you go. There's an obstacle, figure it out. And we know a couple paths to get there, but we're not denying that there might be a bunch of others. So please do have fun, and we'll be watching and seeing, learning from the players, because players, when you have enough that many people that are bright and are good at puzzles, they're going to come up with some pretty creative solutions, and that feels good to the player, because the player isn't just sort of, oh, I figured out the solution. It's like, I am a pioneer. I am a genius. I figured it out, and I bet you no one else figured it out the same way. And that feels like next level. And those endorphins that are released when you kind of feel like that in a game are exactly what designers are trying to gun for, because that is definitely the recipe for people playing the game a lot.
And unfortunately, this is also where a lot of game, you're just breaking the game. and
that
you're
too. Yeah.
actually on the other side of the wall, and then you can.
Yeah. Yes,
I've
that's
seen
true.
one of the. How do they call it? Fast walkthrough video. Basically,
Yeah.
those that they
Yeah.
try to do the game the fastest they can, and they're someone that did the Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And I don't know, it was, it's a game of obviously many hours of gameplay, but I think that there was a speed run, exactly, but it was speed run like in 20 minutes. He basically found every loophole where you can jump behind the behind the wall, so you skip like 6 cinematics and you get right to the end. You're basically breaking the entire game, but you find a way to get to the finish, to the from beginning to end in a crazy short amount of time.
Oh yeah, it's like they just shatter all the expectations the designers had. And the designers,
and I mean, level designer are just crying because they're like all the artwork is just
just like literally kiss it all goodbye. It was all worth nothing. I'm going to play a video that I know that you've seen and that it literally cracks me up literally every single time. And this is 100% what it's like to be a game developer or spend so much time and energy on something that guaranteed people will just find a way of breaking or not understanding. It's sort of like a master class in UX, user experience, in one very simple video. You know the one I'm going to play, and it's so dope. Let's just play it.
Bring it.
It's so good. It's just too good. I just can't not share it right now. It's so good. Here we go. So if you've seen this one, I apologize in advance, but it is just too good to not share right now.
This is a square. Can you guess which spot that goes in?
The square.
That's right. It goes in the square hole.
Yes. Okay.
So it's
how about this rectangle?
The developer on the left,
also
the tester on the right.
In there too.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got this thin rectangle.
The thin rectangle.
Can you guess where that goes?
The thin rectangle.
That's right. It goes in the square hole. And up next,
this just gets so much better.
The circle.
I think that goes in
the circle.
The square hole. Now we've also got this semicircle
the
right
look
here.
On her face.
Do you see a slot that would fit
the semicircle?
Semicircle?
The semicircle.
That's right. It's the square hole.
It's like her will to live is just like literally leaking out of her body right now.
We know what hole that goes
the
into,
triangle.
right?
Triangle.
That's right. The square hole. And up next, we have the arch.
The arch. The arch.
You guessed it.
The arch.
It goes in the square hole.
Oh man, it's just too good. It's just too good.
Yep.
I love it.
So it's pretty impressive when, dev team like Zelda can figure out ways that you can still be creative with the rules and still solve those puzzles in a way that was not intended, but it still feels fun and rewarding and doesn't feel just like a cheat.
Yep, exactly. Like that's the thing. I think you nailed it. It's like if you find your own way around, it shouldn't feel like you just cheated the game or you glitched it or there was a brokenness about it. It's just like, no, you plotted your own way through it and you feel good about it. You feel like, man, like I totally brought out all the guns today and solved this in a unique way. And it's always the best, but it doesn't have to be that. It also can just be like classic game design that's tricky, that has one singular solution that's just layered. Yeah, but not an easy thing to do because not everyone's equipped to make the puzzles like this. It's not an easy thing and it can't be rushed. This kind of stuff takes time. And it's also what I find happens is you bring in a puzzle designer and they come in midway through the production because the production's on fire and they need more puzzles for their levels. And then, of course, they're told to use these ingredients. And it's like the ingredients don't really contribute towards like good combinatorial. That's the thing about the Zelda one, is that they just work, they complement one another. They're like, it's like different chemicals in a chemistry set. It's like a kid is playing with these sort of different solutions and these different compounds to create new things. And if those elements are not interesting and they don't react in interesting ways, then it's like what's the point? So anyways, I think that's the key. And that's what Andrew's sort of hungry for. He's like, let's get somebody on stream to do a play test as well. And maybe hopefully they have some puzzle experience. And then I have some insights that the team can leverage and sort of bring into the fold. They might go right away like, you guys are sitting on a gold mine. There's like, why aren't you doing this, this, and this? And everyone's going to go, I don't know. Where were you like literally 2 years ago? That's probably what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. I have some questions in the backlog that we can kind of dig into, unless anybody in chat has something that they want to throw our way. Let's see. I'll just start, and then if anyone says anything, I can bring it up too. Oh, that's a good one. Let me bring this one up. Okay, the question is, hi, can you share some tips on how to get rid of the pose-to-pose feeling in the character?
We need to bring back this question once when we have either Jacob or one of our other animator to come to the stream. I can share some tips on how to get rid of the pose-to-pose feeling in the character. Yeah, I can start.
Sure.
It depends of the style of animation that you're going for, right? If you're going super stylized, or either many features that Sony are working on, for instance, there's definitely some style that you will want to keep this pose-to-pose feeling. But if you're going for a more stylized realism that I would call more, DreamWorks, Pixar, Disney kind of style, definitely relying on reference is going right there. Your acting choice will become obvious once you shoot many ref and you follow them, and then you will isolate those key poses that you were used for your blocking. But at the same time, once you start to refine and you put your breakdown and your splitting and all that, you will see the body mechanic in your reference that you have to exaggerate in your animation. But you're not just going to go from pose to pose. You're going to see all the weight shift and the drag and the fall through and all that, and all of those things that, somehow you hit those poses, but there's so many secondary motion that is going on that as you progress, those will just disappear by themselves.
Yeah, I think, it's funny because I often talk about the, the difference between television production and feature production. When I animate, I tend to break it into 3 different phases. I tend to block it, which is all about composition and timing and staging. It's trying to understand the mechanics of the shot, the basically just sort of pouring those foundational walls so that I understand more or less what the staging direction is, and can I fit it all in? Can I get all my ideas in with the sort of the time I have on a shot? And then once I have something that works, and hopefully I sold that up the chain of command, and I'm getting the whole yes, that's great. Keep going. Then I will then layer in I'll do some splining, and I'm starting to manage the actual the interpolation between the key poses. By the way, my block is often in stepped. I know that you're not a gigantic fan of stepped, but for me, it's just the way I learn, because like I told you before, it's like 2D animation. That's how we learn. So my brain is just sort of hardwired to think like that. So it helps. But it doesn't need to be. And then I'm sort of splining. I'm trying to work on making sure that I'm managing my slow in and slow outs, and I'm trying to get hang time, and I'm getting sharp collisions with the ground. I'm doing all the stuff you're supposed to be doing. And I start adding some breakdowns to get some arcs and some drag and some favors wherever I need to. Basically, I'm worried about motion at that point. And then I go into the polish, and the polish is the most important phase in my mind to really start breaking up that sort of pose to pose feeling, because at that point I'm adding the overlapping action. I'm adding a lot of secondary. I like to add a lot of texture to a shot. Some people call it slop. Slop being, I think the last person I heard use the term slop was David Gibson, but basically it is a layer that I put on top of things that actually has just ambient sort of like imperfections. And when you layer it like this, what happens is it starts to literally just break apart what used to be rigid, clear movements from pose to pose, because this extra layer of motion sort of disguises that in a weird way. It's like a smoke screen that really works really well. I do something similar for cycles in games. I'll actually author a really good cycle that's clean, super symmetrical, very, very repetitive. You want that because it'll look like a limp otherwise. And then what I do is I then replicate that, like, let's say 5-6 times, and it's just the same cycle, same loop, like that many times. But then on a layer, I'll go and put a bunch of that same kind of slop in there. I'll have the feet strike in slightly different locations, a little bit of meandering to my line, so it's not a perfectly straight line. There's a bit of horizontal drift, and all these things layered up. make it so that it no longer looks like the same 24 frames that are playing over and over again. It'll completely disguise it, and it just so it's all about how you cleverly layer things on top to try to sort of soften the effect that it's very rigid and very planned, basically, in my mind. And the more time you spend in that sort of phase of thinking, the quicker it's going to just dissolve into no longer being recognizable as those original poses.
Yeah, you mentioned ambient motion. I remember when one of the things I was struggling when I was doing ambient motion. Ambient motion is super subtle, and if you don't spend enough time doing it, it just seems that your character is kind of drifting a little bit, like it's in water. But it's literally like you're trying to craft those micro movements. And it's one of the animators at DreamWorks, David Cuchariel, that said, no, just do something super broad. It's like have your character dance and with snappy and rhythm and all that. And then once you're don't have to go crazy with polish, but when you have something that kind of works, take all the curve and you scale them to almost nothing.
That's funny.
So so this motion becomes super subtle, but it's not going to be floaty and all that. They'll have all those little rhythmic in it that is much more.
There's overlap in there, even though it's hard to detect, and it's not just moving at the same time, and it's not linear. There's twist, and there's also translates.
So as much as it's a bit overkill and it takes more time, at the end of the day, you have something that is not floaty at all, and that looks way more like a real ambient motion, which is basically all the muscles of your body that are, having the micro spasm at all time to make sure that you fight gravity and you keep your center of balance. So
that's cool. I never thought of doing that. Just going way over the top and just doing something big, and then with the full intention that you're gonna scale the crap out of it to the point that it's unrecognizable, and it's just all it is. It's just you're moving pixels at that point, but at least you're moving pixels in a way that looks a bit more believable.
And it was literally a layer that we would apply, especially for background characters that are not doing much or just there, and you're like, I don't have time to animate like 8 ambient motion. Just paste the layer on all of those on different poses, and that works.
Oh, nice one. It's good. Let's see what else I got. Well, I got a question. I think it showed up here. Oh, look at that, Scott to the rescue. What's up, Scott? We've spoken about studios blacklisting artists. Do you have any stories about artists blacklisting studios? Oh, that's funny. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Oh man. I'm not going to name any studios tonight in fear of retribution.
Brent,
of course,
why would people blacklist some studios? What could be the reasons?
There's so many reasons. It's just like, how can I even start? Usually it has to do with toxic management and bad culture is usually what it comes down to. And that could be, takes many forms. It could be, blatant chauvinism or bigotry or like something completely intolerable, especially in this day and age. It could be that. It could be, just abuse of the employees, like overtime all the time without any compensation at all. It's like, it could just be bad scope to the projects. Maybe the company's full of really great people, amazing people. Management's amazing too. The problem is that they don't know how to manage the project, and so it's like it's almost painful to be working there because that it's not going to be managed well. It's going to be underbidded, and it's going to be a chore to get done, and it's going to probably steal from you years of your life that you're not going to get back. And so you might do it for one, but then after that, and then it starts to become a trend. And then next, everyone's talking about it. And nobody wants to work there. And it'll destroy the studio because it'll get to the point where the only people they can get now are a bunch of juniors who don't know any better, or a bunch of people that are maybe, I don't know, paid to stay. I don't know, but it doesn't end well for the studio usually.
Yeah, I would say overtime, and especially if it's unpaid overtime, that's definitely something that's going to create a bad reputation for a studio. That's for sure. And sometimes it can be subtle, but even if it's not mandatory, there's some studios have a or sometimes actually it's not really the studio, it's some team, because in some studio you have the different project, but some team are very good at being slightly passive aggressive towards overtime to make it kind of obvious that you don't have to, but the rest of the team is kind of doing it. So
Yeah.
That would be great if you could be part of the team and do your own. And that can happen at time, but when it's, just constant, and you realize that, okay, and we're always changing direction, and at some point it just becomes an habit, and people do overtime for the sake of overtime without taking a step back of, wait, why are we still doing overtime? We've been doing overtime for years now. Why is it always a thing?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's way more difficult to properly bid and manage, and to properly manage a production that will end up not requiring overtime than just go with the flow. And if they have to do more than 40 hours, they should already be grateful of having a job anyway. This kind of attitude is definitely.
Yeah. I have there's an anecdote here that I have about a famous producer from back in my day who was caught by somebody saying this very famous phrase when talking about the topic at a management meeting about exactly this sort of like people were unhappy, and it was like people were not didn't really enjoy some of the policies and some of the amount of work that was being asked of them. And the response by this producer, who will remain unnamed, was, well, artists and animators, they're kind of like light bulbs. They're meant to be burnt out and replaced. That was literally what was said. And so unfortunately what happens is that starts to catch on, and then that starts to hit the sort of the sort of the grapevine, and then people start listening. Who'd want to work there after hearing that? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, no, that's just a huge red flag. That one of the sort of and this was not just some producer. It was kind of like the executive producer of the studio. So it was that's the kind of stuff that, like, if you end up having that big of a mouth and that wrong of an attitude, it will absolutely bite you in the ass. And that studio went from being really big at one point to really becoming quite small. And I think a lot of it had to do with that kind of unfortunate culture that was there. The sad part is the person who ran the studio, like the owner of the studio, was like one of the nicest people I know. And he just kind of went into business with somebody who, in my opinion, might not have been the greatest choice for a variety of reasons. And, the consequences, they will follow.
I would say in general as well, a studio that will favor mainly productivity and efficiency compared to build a good culture with their artist is definitely going to suffer from it. And have an example of many studio, actually, especially in VFX, that many stories of shots are passed from one animator to the other. One animator, oh, you're available, you're going to start 6 shot. Okay, we're going to take your 2 blocking, we're going to send it to this other animator because now, and basically, maybe for production it kind of makes sense, but in terms of artist happiness of owning their work and being fulfilled and satisfied, that's just terrible. So sometimes it is just how, what do you value? Are you trying to maximize everyone's time? Are you trying to just, manage a production in a way that doesn't really think about, we want to make sure that those artists that we have now are still going to be here in a couple of years. So yes, we need to deliver, but at the same time, we need to create a culture and environment that they will fulfill. So when that doesn't happen, sometimes it can create a bad reputation as well.
Oh yeah, it can happen pretty quickly too. And it, in some studios, they can compensate for some of this by like having really good bonus programs, and they have other ways of sort of distracting you from some of the sort of, in my opinion, more important sort of values of a company. But I mean, everyone's different, right? Some people are, willing to cast a blind eye. Some of these big studios have so many projects going on at the same time as well, that it's like an experience of one person is so different than the other person, just because it's like they might as well be different companies. I know Ubisoft is like this. Very, very different cultures on the different teams. And so I know people that are super unhappy with the place, and other people that are just like, what are you talking about? This place is amazing. And it's like, it couldn't be more. The disparity is so big on opinion. And it just, because it comes down to just how isolated and siloed these different teams are, and being able to sort of, which is a good thing and probably a bad thing at the same time, you know?
Yeah, it's and sometimes it's just one individual that is creating a bad mode for an entire team, and you know, at times they can be super political, which means that they're going to say, and this is something we discussed in one of our latest discussion with, I don't remember if it was Pierre Olivier. But you know, there's some people that are really good at the politics, which means that to everyone above them, they're going to say the right thing to the right people, and to their producer and all that. It's going to seem like they're doing a good job, but actually, you speak to everyone below them in their team or their other team, and it's a totally different story. So sometimes, unfortunately, just one person can create a bad reputation for an entire team.
Yep. It's funny. I was just reading back on the comments, and it looked like we had some person dropping in here randomly laughing that it looked like it was two people having this big conversation with like only for an audience of one or two. But I think what they didn't understand, if you're still in there, go crazy, go stupid. But we're multiple casting to lots of different places, and most of our viewership is in Twitch. Just FYI, we're not crazy. We're not just sitting here talking to one or two people. Although that would be pretty funny. I would still do it. You're good enough company, David.
I would still do it because we are recording those, and for me, the value is to store them on the library, and they're going to be, searchable afterwards. So that's the value we get from those as well.
Absolutely. Okay, Petar, you're up to bat, my friend. What are your thoughts on phrases such as work family, quote unquote? Basically anything that blurs the lines between work and personal life. Can work really be family when they can just fire you the next day? I guess a family can't fire you. How does an aspiring artist that strives for a sense of, belonging look out for themselves? You always have these cerebral questions, Petar. Do you have like these visions in your sleep that you come up with these questions? It's like you dream up these really like very complex scenarios, and then you bring them to David and I. It's like a confessional.
Yeah, I kind of agree a little bit that on the workplace to say like we are family, it's a little bit pushed. It's a little bit not really. I mean, for me, family is, you're stuck with them. Whatever happened, you're still going to love them no matter what, and they're there. For me, work is more like a sports team. It means that in the moment, you need to have a good chemistry. You need to know leverage each one, strength and weaknesses. You're there for each other, but you also do realize that this is our team this year. Next year, the team will be slightly different. And 5 years from now, it might be completely different. And 15 years from now, no one here is still going to be there.
Yeah.
And some of us might still be friends, but it's not like a family that, you didn't see your sister or brother for a couple of years. And, no matter what happens, you're there for them. So I think there can definitely be a sense of camaraderie. And for me, this is why a sports team that you are fully invested in the success of the team as a whole is a better analogy for me than a family.
Yeah, I mean, I got mixed feelings. I think it's funny. I just saw what Sergey wrote. He wrote, "Once we don't sit together, well, that's it." Who was that guy? I think he's suggesting that like when people are no longer sitting next to each other or next to each other, it's sort of like a divorce as far as like work family is concerned. I don't know. Like I think first of all, smaller companies really do a better job of emulating this in a real way, I find. And that's assuming that the company's got good culture and good chemistry and that the team really just gels. I've been in studios like this where it feels like people are kind of a little bit like family in the sense that you respect them a little bit more than like the sort of the casual acquaintance at work that you work with and you're professional with. It goes a little bit beyond that because you've worked with them for a number of years. You become friends with them. It goes a little further than just a regular kind of job relationship. But it really completely depends on the studio, and the bigger studios tend to not be quite as much because, like David was sort of mentioning, there's a lot more moving around. So it's like it's not quite, and it's like a bigger studio with more projects. So the chances of you continue to work together, like inevitably through perpetuity, is probably less likely. So maybe that doesn't quite happen. That sort of phenomena doesn't happen as much. But I mean, I'm not going to fight it, but it would make me maybe irk me a little bit if a studio was trying to push the messaging a bit too much, like that was what they were aiming for,
Yeah, the way that Pilar phrased it, this is why I understood it. It's mainly, it's rare that your peers, your team is going to say, "Oh, I really feel like we're a family." It's going to usually come more from a speech from the upper management. That's going to try to boost morale and remind that we're all a big family and all that. So I understand that it has its moment, especially when it's tough in a production, and if it boosts morale, if it can bring people together, fine. But Peter, you mentioned, can work really be family when they can fire you the next day? A studio cannot say we're like family, but if you fail, we're going to fire you. No, if we're family, it means that if you're not able to do your work properly, they're going to try to find out why and find solution to make you succeed within this little family. So I would totally agree that if on one side they say, "Hey, remember guys, we're family and we're there for each other," but by the way, Joe, Cindy, and Julie, you're all fired because you didn't met your quota. That bullshit is going to be very apparent very rapidly. So, okay, you can push and go on the side of saying that we're family, but now you have a moral commitment. That comes with
totally agree.
Yeah.
You gotta it's gotta like a real family, like as David was indicating, it's like you're kind of stuck with them, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It's like you're bound by blood, and I think that's kind of important. Some people take that more seriously than others, but basically at the end of the day, there's you can't just use the concept of family to sell a positive thing, but then not be there on the rainy days, and to be there to help people through the slumps, because that's real family. Family are there no matter what. When they're not just sort of fair weather friends, they're or business relationships, they're going to stick with you. They're not going to just sort of take the easy out, and then just because you don't make a quota, like David said, you're out. That would be a very, very big hypocritical sort of way to react to a problem like that. And then that would really quickly shine a very, very negative light, I think, on the culture of the way that the management is trying to sell the studio, and that kind of news would travel pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, you want to play the family card? You got to stick with your employees when things don't go well. Otherwise, just don't.
Yeah, totally. There's a really sweet question that rolled in here. I'm going to pull it up. It's now we're not gonna be able to give you any legal advice here for sure, but I mean,
this is where we should have a little disclaimer that there's
probably a good idea. We need that disclaimer button. So basically, the question here is, what options do I have besides getting a lawyer? Do I have when a studio owes me money as a contractor? Well, the first question I would have, I don't know if you're still here, Jose, but are like, how long have they owed you money? Because typically, just FYI, maybe you're new to this, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not going to make any assumptions. But usually, whenever you're in a contractual agreement, sort of relationship, it's usually the general rule is 30 days after invoicing. So, I mean, if it hasn't even been 30 days yet, then you probably just need to just wait a little bit. If it has been way longer than that, then I apologize in advance. That does suck. And I don't know. It's a really good question. I guess it depends. Like, are they going bankrupt right now? Are they just not returning your phone calls? Where do you live? Like, I would have a lot of questions, because that obviously is kind of not cool.
Yeah. I'm assuming 90 days. No, Sergey, 90 days is not a thing.
No. Whoever told you that?
I confirm that it's usually 30 days. I've seen up to 45 and even 60 days But 60 days was like a one, and we were like, what? No, that's way too long.
Totally.
Especially on individuals, like big corporation within them, maybe 90 days is a thing,
for sure.
But for a contractor, more than 30 days is very unlikely. I'm assuming that we're talking about legal actions here that can be taken, because showing up with a baseball bat is obviously a terrible idea. I would. What are the options? Unfortunately, you don't have many options, because again, what is the reason? Did they go in bankruptcy? If it's the case, they probably have, the way it goes when there's a bankruptcy is that they're going to say, okay, well, there's this amount of money that can be redistributed to all of those different, and they're going to start with, okay, well, we're going to start by your the owner of the building. You're going to pay the rent. Before that, maybe you're going to pay the bank, and before that, you're going to pay any money that you owe the government. And by the time they get to the contractor, there's no more money. So if the studio just declared bankruptcy, unfortunately, it sucks, but move on.
It's happened. It does happen. And this doesn't, it's not even contractual. It could be the people that, like, there's been stories of studios, and this happens unfortunately more than I like to admit, where it's that you have a salary job, and the studio ended up in some hardships, and there was like a lot of, hey, we can't pay you, but we have intentions of paying you, so we would really appreciate it if you can to continue working, because otherwise, if everyone just stops working, then we're going to have a hard time paying everybody. So, and unfortunately, sometimes this doesn't go well, and people end up working for months sometimes without pay, and then they go bankrupt, and then they're out of all that money. Because when I don't know if you understand how bankruptcy works, but David pretty much described it perfectly. But it's called a receivership, and there's a whole mechanism that sort of gets enabled, and it's not, in my opinion, very fair. I think that it should be completely the opposite of the way it gets dealt with. I think the people that are like literally looking for food on the table, like they're contractors, that money is meant to pay their bills and their mortgages. And so I don't understand why they're not the first ones getting taken care of. Instead, I find often it's like corporations that get taken care of first. And it's like, why? I mean, no one can really, I'd love to know why. I'm sure there's an economist who can probably try to tell me why, but to me, it doesn't seem very fair.
There's other scenario that some people and even corporations get themselves in bad contracts, like payment on approval, and there's no clear guideline of approval. What we do as animators is subjective. So a studio could decide that, well, we never officially approved your work, so we don't have legal obligation of paying you. This is definitely misleading. But if it would be this situation, well, now you've learned to not get into those kind of contract anymore. So it seems okay. So it seems, Jose, that you say that they are past their payment time and they're still in business. Well, then my first question would be why? Just I would assume that you already contacted them by email and then by phone and all that, and they're basically to a point that they're not answering your call anymore. They're still in business, but they just decided for whatever reason, maybe they run out of money themselves, that they're not going to pay the contractors. Worst comes to worst, there's no other solution than, as you said, trying to get a lawyer. But really ask yourself the question, do you want to invest time and money into it?
It's a very good question.
What is the amount? I'm going to put extreme, but do they own you $100,000 or do they own you $5,000? Because if it's $5,000 and you're like, well, okay, you can, how much energy are you going to put in it to go get this $5,000 compared to learn from it? Maybe it was a bad contract. Maybe you went to it too rapidly. Maybe there was some smoke and you kind of had this feeling that it would be a bad gig, but you took it anyway. Just before you go with the lawyer route and all that, which, by the way, is going to be expensive and probably won't bring the result that you are hoping. Because at some point, I mean, the lawyer is going to charge you per hour. Let's say it's $200 per hour, and is going to do the first pass. Okay, 10 hours, 2,000, it didn't work. Do we continue? Okay, another 10 hours, 2 more thousand, it didn't work. Do we continue? at some point it's money that you're going to put in it and all that. So I think that unfortunately, if it's past the time, they're still in business, they're not answering your call anymore. Just ask yourself, should you put energy into this route, or just move on and learn from that experience and know better the next time. Yeah.
There are a couple other quick little things that I could suggest. Again, this is not legal advice, but basically, depending on where you live, I know the United States and Canada, I don't know what it's called in Canada, but I think in the United States it's called the Better Business Bureau. Sometimes lobbying groups like this, like sort of essentially advocacy groups, can sometimes create enough pressure because they have a big enough voice that they will draw a lot of negative attention towards the studio if they don't comply and do the honest thing and properly pay you. Sometimes these people can be effective. I've seen it effective in the past. Sometimes there's even news channels. So your local news channels can be something that you can actually contact and tell them the story. Sometimes they have like a person who does stories specifically like this. They're sort of like social justice warrior reporters that kind of go out and like make companies accountable for this kind of garbage. Another option could be theoretically maybe avoiding the lawyer, because I think if it is a lower number like $5,000 at small claims court, where you could just represent yourself, but it will require time. You'd have to make appearances in court, and you have to, like David said, how much is your time worth? It sucks to even sort of have to do that math, and it's completely unfair, but there are bad actors out there that they're going to take advantage. And it sounds like you unfortunately might have run into one of them, possibly.
Yeah, and there's also firms that are specialized into getting, I don't remember, there's a term, I don't remember how it is. And then, usually they will charge a percentage. So whatever money they're able to go get, they're going to take like 10, 15, 20% of this amount, which might be another options.
Depends on how much they owe you.
Yeah, don't expect, if they owe you, again, a small number like 5,000, don't expect that this firm is going to work for even a day just to go get that money.
Yeah,
they might spend an hour and a half and just have the legal term and send the email and choose the head of whatever on LinkedIn and do the normal procedure that's going to take them 1 hour, just to scare maybe a little bit the studio and motivate them to repay.
I didn't realize Sergey was such a professional troll. He's then suggesting to pay it forward and then not pay the lawyer. So it's not a bad idea. It's like, all right, lawyer guy, you didn't get my money back. All right, well then you don't get paid. How's that? Everyone's gonna lose. Everyone loses today. I like it. I like the attitude. Iona had a question here. It's very long, so I'm not going to post it because it'll be impossible to read. So let me just read it off here. It's a good one. I like this one a lot. Question: I have a big desire to make a fancy short action animation. I'm feeling very enthusiastic about it, but when I think why I'm doing it, my enthusiasm starts to fade away, because when I create something, I'm ready for the critiques and I share the work. I'm so excited and I put it on social media and it's barely noticed by anybody. This is me I'm channeling you right now, Iona. Hopefully you don't mind my portrayal. Do you have any advice about how to get out of this cycle of the black hole cycle? How do I have any idea where I can present the work to people that are actually interested in seeing this kind of stuff? It's a good question. Let me take a crack at this one first. So one of the things that I think you need to go back and watch a stream that David and I had. There's a bunch of them. Yeah,
Brent, you can hide the other question.
Oh yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, otherwise people would be like, "What the hell he's asking?" There was a stream. Who was it? Manny. I think Manny's a really good sort of stream to take a look at, because he addresses this a little bit. This basic idea of building a brand, because I think that's what you need to do. And building a brand is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be like, oh, I have this really cool idea for an animation, and then I'm going to put it out there, and then another 4 months go by, and I'm like, I'm going to do another animation. To build a brand, you're going to have to make like a committed effort to probably trying to have a bit more of, have to be a bit more prolific, probably. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to always be posting new animations, but I think the idea of updating and having something to say, or just contributing to the feed to sort of build a brand. And you have to take a step back and ask yourself what that brand is. First of all, what is it that you want? How do you want to portray yourself? I would seriously go check that video, and I think it might be very inspiring for you, because I think it's going to give you a lot of good tips. I think who's the one that, what stream did we talk a lot about LinkedIn and how we really underutilize it? I feel like, who was that?
I think it was with Ilse.
I think you're right. I think it was Ilse. Yeah. That would be another one to go take a look. Please type the name of what? Of the stream. Please type the name of what? I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to say, Sergey.
You got derailed.
Did I? Oh, I got derailed by what?
By Sergey. I don't know. You were explaining something, and then you got derailed by his question.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I don't remember what I was saying, but anyways, so you want to go, you're right. I totally get it. Did get derailed. I think that those two streams, and they're available in our library. You can go take a look at them. Look for the Ilse one, the Ilse Zemaripa, and Manny Fragilis. Those two are quite on point with regards to building kind of a brand and leveraging these two. I think that personally, LinkedIn is a really good place. It's a lot better than Facebook and other places that you could go, because it's a bit more tailored to what you're trying to do, build a brand on a professional level. So those are my tips.
Yeah, I would say building a brand definitely takes time and resilience. The first thing I have in mind when I read this question is to take a step back and, why are you emotionally affected if no one gives a shit about your animation?
Yeah, that's a good question.
There was a time that Brent and I remember that social media, or how we called it, Internet 2.0, was not such a thing. So we would actually be motivated and inspired to work on stuff that we would show our friends on the screen of our computer, maybe our parents.
Hold on a second. I'll be right back.
So, all right, he's going to go get the whatever machine he was using to show his work. But the motivation was to create something, to add a piece on our showreel. What is it?
So before the internet. It is. This, my friends, is how David and I would have to shop around our stuff back in the day. This was before DVDs even were a thing, or before CDs. We would have to literally put this in an archaic machine called a VHS, and we would have to record somehow onto this. This, like, we had to, like, literally, like, how do you even carry more than one of these on a backpack? There it is, my name and phone number, and there would have been like this. Don't try that number. Obviously, it's not going to be me anymore. Although if it is, that'd be very impressive, because it means you found some sort of wormhole back to the before times. Tell the young version of me to I don't know.
Yeah.
Be smarter and wiser.
So Iona, maybe just question: what are your real motivations? Do you want? Are you, taking energy out of the praise of social media, or you actually want to create a good piece for your showreel? If you want to create a good piece for your showreel, yes, feedback are great. If you don't have those feedback, you can find private mentorship. You can purchase a super affordable review on Agora.Community. There's ways to get those feedback if they don't come naturally. But to the point of losing the motivation to do it in the first place, because you feel that, why do I even do it if no one cares? Maybe it's a reframing of your motivation of why you're doing that in the first place. If your goal is to become an internet personality and your way to get there is through animation, that's another story. Then yes, you should really care and you should do your research. Why is it working for some? I'm going to, and just like animation, you start to reproduce classic animation, and then eventually you have your own style, and you can you find your own ways to analyze what other streamers or people that have like 20,000 followers on Instagram, what are they doing? Kind of repeat a little bit the same thing, and eventually start to improvise, and you're going to get there. If your role is to become a better animator and improve your showreel, you should not be emotionally affected at all, or I'd say your motivation to work on this personal piece should not be affected at all by if people care to give feedback or not.
I get that it may feel kind of crap because then you'll see other people post things and you're going to see all these people talking about it and you're like, well, wow, what the hell? Well, I'm over here and does nobody even see me? Honestly, all I can say about that is welcome to the circus, because I think that there are a lot of people paying a lot of money to try to figure out what goes viral and what doesn't. And honestly, every time they come up with a theory, that changes because it gets blown out of the water, because then there's some outlier that comes out and they are famous for completely different reasons that, it is frustrating to all of us. And if we knew, then we would be living on a Caribbean island right now, probably David and I. So that's for sure. So I think that it's just all you can do is sort of look at the ones that are doing really well and ask yourself, okay, what are they doing differently? But don't look only at that one post. Are they posting regularly? Like, are they building a brand? Do they have like, how is their like, what's the language they use when they post things? Like, is it jovial? What's the content? Is there a theme to the content? Is it always with the same characters? Like, I think that these are the questions you have to ask yourself, because it's not about the animation specifically. It's about a constellation of things that sort of has an impact on whether people are going to engage with the content or not.
Yeah, and I think we can make a parallel with this fine gentleman that reminded us that tonight we had 2 viewers, including himself on YouTube Live. If our goal was to become super famous streamers and all that, maybe it would affect us, but our goal is to provide value to whoever is interested. That's a great way to create content that we're going to then store on Agora Community Library, and we're working on research tool that would mean that eventually someone is going to look for, hey, what a junior should do in the workplace, and then boom, 9 different clips that we're discussing about that specific. So whether we have, that would be great to have 500 people to listen to us live, but if we have 50, fine, it's better than none. And anyway, the goal is not, we like the interaction, it make it more dynamic for us, but the end goal is really to create all of this content in a fun and interactive way. So since we're clear with our motivation, this doesn't really affect us. So,
have the attitude of you're going to do it anyways. You don't need the sort of the recognition or the sort of the I don't know, the tap on the back, or that this is not what it's for. It's about getting in the practice of just putting it out there anyways, and always trying to trend towards building that brand, and always trying to trend towards improving every single time. Like having an attitude of not be showing off, but instead have like a studious, like, this is me on my journey, and I'm putting myself out there. A lot of the most popular YouTube channels started like that. They just was like, look, I'm just going to document this thing that I do, and people are going to watch. Maybe they won't. Who cares? I'm going to do it anyways.
And
it's like a diary.
What happened right now with Sergey that is asking you? I was about to say that. Did your research of all the animation channel on Discord? Did you look at all the different group on Facebook? There's definitely a lot of people that would actually do give a shit and be more than happy to comment on your animation. And good, it seems that Sergey might be one that's going to do so. So that's great. If it's important for you, but not for the external recognition, but for the feedback that you could have, then spend some time to do your research and look at go follow those 300 groups, try them. Over time, you'll see that, okay, actually it's those 8 group that are the most successful, and then move on with them.
Shameless plug. I did see that Iona ironically just actually ordered a review from me actually on Agora.Community just, I think, today that rolled in. So it's true. He does get feedback from Agora.Community sometimes, but I would also suggest even the Agora.Community Discord server. There's a actual channel in there which is designed for exactly this, for public feedback. You throw it in there, people that are hanging out there. I know you're not always going to have like people with lots of experience commenting on it. It's a bit of a mixed bag. But yeah, David said, there's lots of great communities on Facebook and on other Discord servers that can also assist. You just have to put yourself out there. And I happen to also know that Iona is an ex-iAnimate student, which means that you would also have technically access to the alumni-driven Facebook page, which is actually very active, and they would be happy to have you post your work in there. And I'm sure they're going to comment on it. So I don't know if you're in there already, but you should be if you're not, because you were a student. So get in there. Okay, well, that's it. We're 3 minutes over. I guess we're free to disappear into the night.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
I'm just scrolling, see if there's other question in the chat, but I
don't
think
think so. I think we did it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know, so soon, an hour is passing by so fast.
It does disappear.
What are we doing, Brent, next week? It's going to be a surprise, right?
I think it's going to be a surprise. We do have a list. We'll just pull from one of the ones that are going to be probably the easiest ones to manage. So we'll figure it out. I think we'll just have to pick the one that we think is
Let's just say that anyway, between now and Christmas, we're probably going to alternate one Q&A, and the next week is going to be a special event. So
So just keep you on your toes, like last week. So I know I see a lot of people have joined late in the stream. So last week was not a Q&A. Instead, it was a really fun play test where I played a game that's under development, like just a fun passion project at Agora Studio amongst a handful of people. There's actually one external person who Daniel. What's his last name? I always forget his last name.
Daniel Geese.
Yeah. This just phenom artist that's just it's unreal. We got to get him on the stream at some point. But he's been doing a lot of the art direction for it. And but anyways, long story short, really cool game, very interesting concept. I was playing it with a couple of the devs. David was there, Andrew was there, Marco was supposed to be there, and he bailed on us. I've just publicly shamed him. We'll have to tell him.
Actually, you just reminded him. I need to send in a reminder to join our conversation with stream.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Petar, I see your question, but I think we're going to wrap things up. So keep that one, keep that feather in your cap. I have not ever seen a physical fight at work, but like
me neither.
So there you
that's
go.
That's what have been the easiest. The answer is no, we haven't.
Yeah. There you go. Nope. Simple answer. Okay. Well, we'll see you on the next one, David. Cheers, dude.
Yep.
Bye. See you later, everybody.